Hey everyone, it's Kelly with Women for One, and we are back. 2015, here we go. It's January 2015, and I am really excited to be speaking to you today. And I have an incredible guest that will launch our year positively for all of us and help us find those places that we want to search inside ourselves with some tools that she's created. And really excited to be talking with Jen Louden today. Jen is a personal growth pioneer who helped launch the self-care movement with her first book, The Woman's Comfort Book, which I just love that title. It just makes me want to curl up right now in the rain in Seattle and read that. She's also the author of 6 additional books on well-being and whole living that have inspired more than 1 million women in 9 languages. And I think that's really valuable to our community because we are a community all over the world. And I think it's also awesome that she sat on Oprah's couch, and we're going to talk today about her most recent book, A Year of Daily Joy, a guided journal. And it's just out from National Geographic. And I can't wait to talk about it. But first, I want to tell you why I was drawn to Jen and how I first encountered her. We were both at an event last year. She was speaking at the event, and I was in the audience at a power party for emerging women. And there were probably 6 speakers. And when Jen got up to speak, it was like one of my best friends speaking, because she just has this way of being really, really comfortable in her skin and not worrying about being messy or being perfect. It's just, she just is who she is. And I was so drawn to that truth. I almost was like, I want some of that. So that's why I speak with people at Women for One, because I want a little of that secret sauce that each of them have. And I can't wait to talk to Jen so she can share her journey a little bit about where she's come from and where she's going to impart that secret sauce to us. So welcome, Jen.
Wow, that's a great way to describe what I do, which is be myself and be messy and try to make it worthwhile, though. Like, I really have come to understand in my early 50s, oh my gosh, did I get here, that my role in life is to be aware of what I'm learning and then translate it. And that's all my 6 or 7 or 8 books, I forget how many books I've written, I think it's 8, have done. And it's what I do with my courses and my retreats. And yeah, so thank you for seeing that. That's really wonderful to hear.
I love it. And I want to surround myself with my intention this year in 2015 is to really surround myself with that tribe of people, men and women, that are really not trying to get it right, that are just living life, learning, and intending to impart wisdom to themselves and others, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does, and it's hysterical that we try to get it right. When I look at what has held me back, slowed me down, or drained me, it almost always goes back to trying to get it right, whether it's my business or my writing or my loving, my parenting. It's astonishing. It is the worst setup for listening to our own wisdom and growing. It's so fixed, it's so dead, and it so gets us into looking outside of ourselves for the expert, right?
Yep.
The answer. Oh, let me just take that program.
Right. So finding someone like you that does these programs and writes these books, it was so refreshing to me, and I'm sure to all the people that have read your books and that follow your courses and programs, whatever you want to call them. They're hard to put a name on. And also, though, I think it's fabulous that we have people like you that are just not trying to get it right and that are saying, look, just be yourself. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be to just be myself and to get out of my own way.
Yeah, and there's a reason why. Because when we're young, we don't know who we are. And so we're supposed to experiment, try on different whether it's spiritual practices or different ways of eating and dressing. My daughter's 20 and she's just so cute. She's like, I just don't know who I am. And I don't want to be shallow. But I think one of the ways I'm going to figure it out is by experimenting with how I dress.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a transition that we need to make, and I don't think we talk about it a lot in American culture. I'm sure other do, which is how do we make that transition from experimenting to turning within and saying, what feels right? What feels true to me? And the pace of life and the amount of information that's happening and has started to happen in the last 5 to 8 to 10 years is making it even harder. But we have to have ways. We have to find ways to calm the noise, calm our nervous system, and there's as many of those as there are us, and then find ways to listen to our own experiences. I mean, the Buddha said it so well, don't trust me, don't listen to me, try things out, and then notice, what do you have faith in? What works for you? I mean, I'm paraphrasing him badly.
But listen, I love that. Listen to your own experiences, and that's what we're doing at Women for One, that people are sharing courageously their experiences so they can inspire one another and also learn from them and release them so they don't get stuck in those experiences and define themselves by them. Would you...
That's such an important point, that we move on out of the stories so they don't become concretized, they don't become concrete. The stories of the things that have happened to us, or even the things that are good. Now, I notice one of my practices, which I fail at very often, is not to tell a story about something that happened to me more than 3 times.
Oh, that's really cool.
It becomes like, oh, this is who I am. But who I am is never fixed. It's always fluid. It's always about a conversation with all the parts of me and all the experiences I'm having and all the roles that I lead.
Right. I love that. I love that commitment to not tell that story because, you know, like Maya Angelou says, it gets in the walls, it gets in the fabric of your being if you keep reinforcing that story.
It does. And then we don't even become aware that it's a story that we're telling ourselves. We don't even become aware that we're living a narrative. And we're going to always live a narrative, everybody. It's the way our brains have evolved. We don't take in direct stimulus. We don't take in reality. We can't even see. We have a blind spot in our eyes, a real blind spot that our brain fills in for us. So we're always going to be living in a narrative. We're never going to have a clear, definite idea of what reality is. Just think about your memories, how your sister or your mother has one memory of something and you have a completely different memory.
It's amazing.
It is amazing, but we can always be aware that we have a narrative going, or a pair of glasses that we're filtering the world through, and then we can become curious about, well, how do I want to interact with that narrative? How do I want to soften it? What do I want to let go of? What do I want to question? Right.
And it all comes down to choice, right? That whole choice and empowerment piece of making that choice after you inquire.
Yeah, it really was so beautifully illustrated in Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's famous book that he wrote in Auschwitz and 2 other concentration camps during World War II, that the people he saw who kept their dignity and in some cases their lives were the ones who always remembered they had the choice of how they reacted to life's circumstances.
Isn't it interesting? I just love that because isn't it interesting? I just was watching Elie Wiesel on Oprah yesterday, and he was saying he was in the camps as well, and he lost all his money to Bernie Madoff, and he was like, whatever. I've been through worse. Like, talk about a perception, right?
Oh, that would be really hard for me. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, right away my body seizes up how hard it would be for me. And reading stories about people who lost their money to him. And I just think I would have been one of them, because I would have been like, that sounds great. My friends are doing it. You know? And how many times, just to go back to the theme of our conversation that's emerging, how many times do we not listen to our gut? How many times do we think, well, they figured it out, so I'll just do what they figured out?
Right.
And instead of, to me, it's the regular practice a couple times a week or just once a week of sitting down and going, what's bothering me? What needs attention? What haven't I had time to think about? What do I feel like is off? As well as what's going right? What have I actually accomplished? You know, one of the things I see really drains people is they don't actually track what they're doing. They're not doing anything, and then they get so down on themselves and they quit everything. That's
a really good point. You know, if you don't track you don't celebrate your accomplishments as well as figuring out what's not working.
Yeah, if you want to do one little practice in 2015 to start today, just decide to do it just one time, is at the end of today, just go through, either in writing or just speaking it out loud, everything you did today.
Oh.
I mean, that means drinking those glasses of water you said you would drink. That means answering those 50 emails. That means not yelling at the kids. Whatever it is, you will be amazed at how much you do in a day if you take the time to notice it for 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, I love that. And speaking of that presence, and moving into this new book you have, before we get there, do you ever set intentions for a year, like resolutions? And what is that? Yeah, I was going to ask you what your philosophy on that is.
I don't have the bandwidth or the memory for a year or a month. I have to do it week by week.
Okay.
I think it's also, my life is too fluid, and the way that my brain works, a year, like choosing a word for a year, I forget it after a couple months, and then I feel bad about myself.
Got it. So you're really in the present moment, and you look at it in short spurts, like of a week. Okay, here are my goals.
Yeah, here are my goals, or here, to me, it's like I'm trying to go even under goals, because goals to me, just as a word, and I don't mean to,
it's fine.
But hairs. But to me, it's always, it tends to get me outer directed into that place of, ooh, what should I do? What's everybody else doing? Oh, I better be dreaming big, or endless possibilities, or my best self, and all of that.
Right.
It's me, personally, away from me. And so I tend to try to think in, like, what are my deepest desires this week, and then what are the small, simple steps, one after another, that I'm going to take. And some, I'll know a few of them, but a lot of them I won't until I've taken the next simple step. So then I try to pause and try, being the operative word, and say, well, what's the next simplest step? And I love to leave myself breadcrumbs when I'm doing a project or trying to change something about my life. So a breadcrumb for me in writing the book I'm working on is to not leave the writing time without knowing where I'm going to start next, for example.
Oh, okay. So, yes.
Or breadcrumb with moving my body more, specifically doing more yoga, which helps me so much with my mood in the winter, is to really sit down and wrestle with when am I going to go to yoga class and get it on my calendar. And by wrestle, I mean not be aspirational, oh, I'll go every day. No, let's really look at what is the to-do list this week. Let's really look at what are the appointments.
Right.
And really see what am I willing to let go of, and what am I willing to mourn. I think one of the reasons we don't live our truer lives and we don't have more satisfaction is because we're not willing to be human.
What do you mean by that?
Well, this may only be me, in which case everybody, embarrassing self-disclosure, but I somehow think that tomorrow I'm going to be someone I'm not today.
Of course.
I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to have more willpower with eating too many cashews and visiting the chocolate drawer in our kitchen, and I'm going to write fast, very slow writer. And so I will plan kind of vaguely this week or this life in which I'm this superhuman that I'm not. The person that I'm not.
Or I actually...
Limited time and energy, right?
Right.
Who does not want to kill someone if she has to work after 4 p.m.? Right? So, I do start early, but whatever, right?
Right.
So what I've been training myself year by year so painstakingly is to really look at what is a human-scaled Jen life. And it's so painful because everybody else out there seems to have unlimited time and energy and be able to do everything perfectly, and it just leads me to such despair. But if I really come at it from self-compassion, and this is the Jen day, and this is the Jen week,
right,
I actually get pretty darn happy.
A human scale Jen life. I love that because we all think everybody's doing more than us, and we all think we can do more than we do. And that's my challenge, is the balance of, okay, this week, really, I'm going to commit to 25 appointments. Like, what am I thinking? And I still do it. And I have to pull myself back and forgive myself, like, and have that compassion. Like, it's okay to cancel. It's okay to, to mess up.
Yeah, last night I was having some panic because I agreed to put on an author's event in May, and we are probably moving from our home of many years in August. And there's a lot going on this year, and I started to think, could I say no? And I was really willing to sit there and struggle and wrestle with it. My my word for today, wrestle. But, can I do it? How could I do it? What changes do I make to stay in this commitment? And in the past, I would have felt shame that I said yes without first wrestling with it.
Right.
And then I would have gone ahead with the commitment. And instead, I immediately began to change it and scale it down. It's going to be something much smaller, but I still can do it. And for the reasons I want to do it, which is to be of service and to connect with other people that I love in my community before I leave.
That is awesome. That's an assertive choice, right? Win-win.
Yeah.
You won, they won. That's great. And I'm constantly wrestling with that. I love that. So let's get into the new book, A Year of Daily Joy. Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of how this came about and what it's about?
Yeah, it's not very sexy. But a friend of mine was the head of National Geographic Books for until recently, and she invited me to write the book. And it's a series that they have, and the first version of the series was pictures and quotes around the joy theme. 1 year was a calm theme. 1 year was a gratitude. And then they wanted to expand it and have authors come in. They wanted me to do the whole series, but I would only do one book of it because I'm working on another project. And they wanted to have written a couple days of quotes that I selected, and then a journal entry around a monthly theme. So, for example, July's theme is adventure.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was it. And I was like, okay, I can do that. That would be a fun. And honestly, I haven't had a new book come out in a long time, and people keep asking me for a new book. And I'm like, okay, this would be a fun project to align with my values. And
yeah, so I'm looking at the contents, like every month has a theme. I love every single theme here. And it's not just love, gratitude, it's perspective, it's wisdom, it's courage. I love those. So, okay, if I get this, what do I do with it? So every day, because we've all moved to these like journals and calendars online and these apps. I love having like a book I can hold to look through this.
Yeah, I do too. I am somebody who likes to hold things. So you can use it any way you want. That's a huge message in my work. It goes back to what you said at the beginning of the call about why you were attracted to have me on the show, which is there is no one size fits all. And if anybody tells you there is about anything in life, run away.
Run.
Seriously. because they are not, as a teacher or an advisor or a coach, they're not mature enough to say, this is what works for me. See what you can use and leave the rest. So you could use this book in a million different ways. You could do it as just a quick, read it and reflect on it on the subway. You could write about it in your journal once a week. You could sit down with girlfriends. In fact, we're doing a free offer. If you buy 2 copies and give one to a girlfriend, you get a year of emails from me to help you stay involved with your friend in the book. And there's a spree task that we're doing, which is a video conference where you get to see me and ask questions on Saturday, January 10th. And that's coming up, so you may have already listened to this.
Yeah, that's really cool, though. I love that, the girlfriend connection, Yeah. Maybe I'll get it for my best friend and myself, because she's in across the country. That'd be so cool.
Perfect. Yeah, so the idea is you can use it any way you want. And you can fold it in to morning ritual that you already have. I hate the idea of prescriptions.
Yeah, no. I'm just, I just kind of wanted to give people a feel for it, like if they saw it and what it would feel like, and what you love about the themes in it, because you helped. Obviously, you picked all these themes.
Yes, and what I love about any kind of practice like this, which is evident from my last 3 books that I wrote before this one, is that you have some kind of ritual of checking in with yourself, that you have some kind of ritual of listening, and that someone outside of you is asking you the kind of questions that help you open up to more. Because the way that our nervous systems and our brains work is to habituate, because we save energy that way, and that's how we survive. Since we were evolving. So we need outside forces, whether they're books or programs or coaches or friends, to keep nudging us to wake up to more, to see our blind spots, to stay awake to our patterns, so that we can take those small, simple steps to keep evolving, to be more awake, to have more joy and happiness, to have more effectiveness in the world.
That's beautiful. So what brings you personally joy in your life, Jen?
What a good question. Okay, I'll start with the really silly and sweet, which is my two little dogs, Stuart and Luna. We call them the Doodle Dogs. They're both part poodle, part terriers. And their antics and their wet noses and taking them for romps in the woods gives me so much joy. It's just the animal nature. Watching my daughter grow up and become a woman is pretty joyful. And sometimes it's awful, it's scary, and I want her to be different than she is, even though she's an incredibly competent, organized, successful person. But I want her to have more joy and wildness, which I think most moms want the opposite. But
no, I'm right there with you. I've got a very serious oldest kid, and I'm always like, okay, you know what? It's okay. If I had one thing to tell a kid at 20 is enjoy yourself. Like, don't be so serious. Don't take life so seriously. That's what I want,
Yeah. Yeah. So you have one too,
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to fall in love a second time after my first marriage ended, and Bob gives me an incredible amount of joy every day. Just last night, I was getting into bed, and he had his reading glasses on instead of his usual glasses, and just to look at his face with those reading glasses on gave me so much joy. It's a funny thing, but that's life, right? It's very unique and very sweet to each of us.
It's the very simple things, isn't it? Usually it's not the big accomplishments. And I mean, you even said, on your site, which I love that you kind of just put out who you are in these 15 things, because it makes you like at least go, oh, she's just a real woman. Yeah, she's an author of all these books. Yes, she's been on Oprah's couch, but it's not about being on Oprah's couch, is it?
No. In fact, that was quite a low point in my life because
right.
I thought that she was going to somehow anoint me so that I believed in myself and my work. This was my fourth book. I was on her couch for my fourth book. I've been doing this for 8 or 10 years. And I was still feeling like a fraud. And I was so thinking that if Oprah has not, Oprah says, I love your book, I love your work, then I would be like, oh, look, I'm somebody. And so I have to embarrassingly say that it took me several years, many years, after having that experience and feeling so disappointed in it, to realize that's what I had hoped she was going to do for me, which obviously no one could do for us.
Nobody.
And just begin this deeper commitment to owning my own wisdom, my own life, and my own desires. And that's really the through line has become the through line of my work, to help other people do that.
Can you say that one more time? Do you remember what you just said, the deeper commitment? I love that.
Deeper and always deepening commitment to own my own wisdom, to own my own experiences, to own my own medicine, my own knowledge, my own work, and my own desires.
Yeah, they're yours.
They're mine. And they're not, they're mine. I mean, and sometimes I have to be like with my sweet Bob, will have to be, because we'll have different desires. And sometimes I project, and sometimes I'm accurately picking up that he's kind of shaming me or disregarding my desires. And sometimes I'll be very adamant. I am allowed to do it this way, or I am allowed to want it this way, even if you don't like it.
I get you.
I'm allowed to stand up and eat my lunch if that's what I desire, and you think it's better for me, air quotes, to sit down and eat. Well, I don't feel like sitting down and eating right now.
You sound like my husband. I say this, I'm your husband. Because I'm like, and he's like, I'm 56 years old. If I want to stand up and eat, I will.
Exactly. And I will be, but then the practice of awareness comes in. Oh, let me notice what it's like to stand up and eat. Do I eat more? Do I enjoy it less? Is my nervous system on high alert? And that's the choice we come back to. But it only starts with permission to listen and awareness. And permission to follow what we want. And for example, this Christmas, I ate and ate and ate. But I was so aware of overeating, and I was so aware of searching for comfort in the food that wasn't going to be there. But I wasn't yet able to stop. But I didn't beat myself up. I did not beat myself up.
That's really cool. It's the steps of change, right? You notice. That's a good step, that awareness piece, I think. I love that.
Nothing happens without it. But here's one of the things that we think, and especially at this time of the year, depending on who you're following on social media, that there's some shortcut. There's some magic
Absolutely.
You're going to buy, take, meditate on, and visualize, make a mind map for one of those vision boards, and then it's all just going to magically happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to be the one to tell you that that is actually a disservice to real change, and that can keep you stuck for years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, years and years. I was in a marriage for years trying to have that idealized image, and then I just was like, what am I doing? So I get it.
Idealized image.
Yeah, the idealized image. It's a bitch. That's what I call it. So if I was a woman and was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of Jen Louden, I got to connect with her, what book would you suggest of yours that you would read first? And I know there's no right answer. I know that. And do you have any programs that would support someone that kind of wanted to get some of the wisdom that you're imparting?
What a good question. Well, if you're looking for a little sort of a daily support or weekly support, I would recommend the Life Organizer. It's not about organizing your stuff. It's about listening to your heart, everything we've been talking about, listening to your soul, listening to your needs.
Okay.
And then related to that, I'm starting on January 16th, and once a week, 1 hour oasis. And we spend about 20 minutes clearing the clutter, coming into deep calm, nourishing our bodies and our nervous systems, really getting to that resting place that we so often don't experience because we're running around, and we're in this light state of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes investigating using these mindful questions that are in my book. What do we need that week? And every week we'll circle back to certain themes week by week. Things like basic needs, minimum requirements for self-care, these deep desires, these choices. So that'll be like a live version of the Life Organizer, and we'll tailor questions every week, and there's some great extras that come with it. Some Q&A calls and a virtual one-day retreat.
That's great to have right at the beginning of a year. So it's Oasis, like OASIS. That's I love that word.
I know, me too. It's not a class or a program. Don't do anything between calls. You don't have to learn anything.
Oh, love it. It's a check-in. It's just a little oasis. And how do people sign up for that? Where do they go?
They will just come to my website, jenniferlouden.com, and you will see you'll see a little button for it right there.
Wonderful. I'm excited. Jen, it's so great to have you in the Seattle area. I feel like even though we haven't met live, but we're very close to each other, physically close, I would love to connect with you because you just feel like you're an inspiration to me in so many ways.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for having the courage to share I'm writing a book now. It's called The Messy Truth. So to share your messy truth, that takes a lot of courage.
Does it though? I think
it did for me. It is for me right now. So I'm in a different stage, obviously.
Yeah, I think what happens the more that we let ourselves is the less we're able to pretend to be somebody we're not.
Right.
It just takes so much energy, and I don't think that it's not about saying everything that's on our mind or letting it all hang out. I mean, anybody who lived through the 70s knows that doesn't work. But it is about not pretending. Mm-hmm. The privacy of our own heart. Right.
And so it doesn't take courage. It just takes a place of allowing, would you say?
Well, for me, it doesn't. For me, in some areas of my life, it doesn't take courage. But, sometimes to be really myself with my beloved or with my daughter, sometimes it takes courage. So, I guess, of course it takes courage. Yeah, whatever. What was I thinking? Of course it takes courage.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just love that. I mean, kind of like the first time I ever wrote a blog, I was terrified to be vulnerable and share. And now I don't even think about it. I'm like, and when I talk to some people, I'm like, just write it. It does, because practice really does support that when you start allowing for your real true self to come out instead of trying to, hide or pretend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think what you also point to is we build a muscle just like we do when we exercise. so the muscle of writing honestly is one that I developed years ago too. And so that doesn't even occur to me. And sometimes people will write me and they say, well, how can you write so honestly on your blog? And it's like, wow, I never even think about it.
Yeah.
I only think, let me write in a way that will serve. So it's not that like, oh, let me tell you about,
right.
The meal that I had today or the sex that I had with Bob. I mean, that's not going to serve anybody. But in terms of like making sure that I'm drilling down to my honest truth, that's the most important thing that I can offer. Sometimes I think it's the only thing I have to offer.
But I will say, I do want to make that point, Jen. I love what you just said. And the reason I love what you said about offering it up, and it's almost like if you want to call it a prayer or an intention, let me write so I can serve. It really takes that place of me out of it. And I can feel it when I'm with people. I can feel when they're speaking from a place of trying to look good. And it's not even, I guess it's a judgment. It's more of discernment for me. And then I can feel it when they're serving. It's a different place, a different energy for me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. I was in meditation, I think it was yoga class a few weeks ago, and I had one of those beautiful epiphanies that I always wish I had a journal with me in yoga, which, you really don't get to do.
Right.
And it was that, and I don't think I cannot do it justice with words, but it was from me to we. And the feeling when I switch from how can I show up, how can I get something, how can they think that I'm okay, how can I please them, how can I get more? It's this kind of greedy, hungry, more. And to the we, and what the words that popped into my head were words that I learned many years ago. I was about 27, and I was on a canoe trip in Quebec, and the men that were leading the 3-week trip were trained with Native Americans, and they weren't Native American, but we did sweat lodges, and I learned the term Ol Matakuyasin, which means all my relations. I hadn't thought about those words in many years, and they came to me in yoga class, and I realized, oh, right, when I'm in the place of doing this for all my relations, that is the generative place, and I am one of my relations. I am on the circle. I am not apart from that. Because I think part of what happens for us as women is all my relations become about everyone else, and then we just exhaust ourselves. So I'm in that circle. It's for me and all my relations. And then I'm just, I can feel the difference in my body when I say it.
I can feel it too. And it's so great to resonate like that, because with every interview I've ever done, from the conversations I've had, from Maya Angelou to a woman in Africa speaking about her abuse, every time I center myself before I get on the phone, and I have this visual of all these women around the world holding hands every single time. And there was one time I forgot it, and it was the worst conversation I've ever had. Do you know? It's like it's that place of offering it up. Like, you know what? I'm gonna get out of my own way to the best of my ability and just go for it. And offer this up and serve. How can I serve?
Love it.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much. It was so great to speak with you today. I hope that our community will go get Jen's books. Go to her site, jenniferlouden.com. It'll be on our homepage for a while, and we will have it on before January 16th. So I want to join the Oasis, and I want to get one of these books for myself and my best friend. So thank you again, Jen. I really appreciate talking to you.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.